I am on a quest to beat every game for the Nintendo Gamecube. Every single one. However, each game is chosen at random by this horrendous wheel, so we are never certain what's coming next. My name is Rami, and this is my quest to beat the entire Gamecube library. Game number 6 is our first fighting game, UFC Throwdown. Released in 2002, it was developed by Opus and published by Crave Entertainment. This launched in the early 2000s, right when UFC had started to become a household name, and I'm sure it will serve as a snapshot in time for anybody that was a fan of the fighters from those days. After the huge time investments of Killer 7 and Road Rage, a fighting game sounded great to me as I was hoping for something a bit more bite-sized. Let's dive in. Wow, this game's graphics are amazing! Similar to wrestling games of the time, we're greeted by a live-action intro with some extremely heavy rock music playing over it. It's predominantly short clips of random fights from back in the day, I guess to pump us up for some UFC action. Alright, looks pretty epic until you play the game. While scoping out our win condition for this one, I checked out career mode since that sounded like our best bet. You're able to make your own custom fighter here, and we went with the classic name, Hugh-Man. There's some fluff like how old your guy is, what color shorts he's wearing, and you can even write a D&D style backstory for them if you like, but the main choice is fighting discipline. There are tons of fighting styles on offer here, and they handle differently based on their real-world counterparts. That all sounded pretty cool, and in doing my research for the game, it sounded like beating career mode would involve training up, competing in tournaments, and becoming the champion. Unfortunately, that is only on the PS2 version. The GameCube game has a totally gutted career mode where you can only spar against 30 opponents to raise your stats. You just fight them in this dark, empty void with no crowd, no music, and you just spam the 3 or so attacks that your guy off the street knows. Win or lose, you earn some points, you can use those to raise your stats, and you rinse and repeat. And that's all there is, sadly. Career mode on the GameCube is a total dead end, and a dull one at that. So with no help there, it was back to the drawing board. I settled on our win condition being to beat both champion mode and legend mode. This would earn our chosen fighter both the silver and gold belts and would play the credits. Your first choice is your weight class, and we chose to compete in heavy. The other classes all have fewer characters, with light only having 3, so that would mean battling against the same 3 characters the whole time. Some of you UFC heads out there might recognize the fighters on offer here, but I personally did not, so I let chat decide for me. They wanted Dan as they were loving that mustache. His nickname was The Beast, and his fighting discipline, wrestling. Beating champion mode is simple enough. We'll need to win 5 separate bouts, and losing one will only make us replay the current match. Every match starts with an intro segment to introduce the fighters, and I'm not gonna lie, it's actually really cool. You get swelling music, the roar of the crowd, and both combatants get a full-on introduction where they showboat and hype themselves up. Although I started skipping through these pretty quickly, every now and then I'd let it run as it would get chat and I hyped up, and it's just a good time. One big moan about this game is the audio mixing. The characters are much quieter than the music, which makes Bruce Buffer's commentary feel totally wasted. You can barely hear him. After, no kidding, 3 or so minutes of fight introduction, it was finally time for our first bout. Alright, chap. Time to pop off.
Are you ready? Let's get it on!
Every fight starts in the standing position and has effectively Tekken controls. Each face button controls a limb on your character, and they can combo in various ways. If you press 2 face buttons, you attempt to tackle the opponent to the floor. A successful tackle puts you in the full mount top position, and whichever character is on top will have a colossal advantage in damage output. From there I managed to take the guard top position where my advantage was even bigger, and a few heavy punches from here was GG. My second match was against Rico Rodriguez. He uses Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he will be a key figure in this video. Rico is an absolute monster. His limbs are extremely long, and he was able to smack me from a distance. Tackling feels pretty inconsistent. It seems entirely random whether the com will break a tackle attempt or not. After I tackled him, Rico almost immediately Uno reversed me and took top position before utterly clobbering me. Since it's only champion mode though, we were able to hit retry and go for another round. In round 2, I almost immediately tackled Rico and took position, but once again, he Uno reversed me. Then we got our first introduction to submissions. He armbarred us, and if that happens, it is an instant loss. For our third attempt, I decided to play more cautiously. If I could just rack up the most hits across the 3 rounds, I would get a technical win. I just try and win by getting the most hits, rather than let him break my arm and take me down. I just get the most hits. The IRL. Oh, what? Stop breaking my arm, man. At this point, I was getting worried. My estimate to beat this game was sub 2 hours, and I was already getting totally destroyed. You can theoretically counter submissions by pressing the same buttons that they did, but it feels incredibly inconsistent for this to succeed. Undeterred, however, I went back in for another attempt. So one weird thing about this game is your health bar also works as a stamina bar. Anytime you perform an attack, some of your HP bar will turn red. With time, this red portion will recover, but if you are hit, it will be lost, and totally depleted health will not recover until the end of the round. Blocking is performed by holding back from your opponent. In a 3-dimensional fighter, it feels really weird. A block button would have made a lot more sense here. We often ended up in a scenario where the opponent would completely turtle by blocking every attack and breaking every tackle. If that happens, you end up worse off from the stamina cost of just keeping up your onslaught. If both fighters manage to survive a round, they'll recover some health or stamina and reset to the neutral. But it wasn't long before Rico demolished me for the 4th time. In round 5, I discovered the coolest thing about this game, countering. A bit like the Dead or Alive franchise, you can attempt to counter either punches or kicks, and if you time it correctly, you will be able to gain a huge advantage. If you pick the wrong counter though, you will take severe punishment. This leads to a cool rock, paper, scissors dynamic of attacking, blocking, and countering to try and gain an advantageous grapple. After being demolished by Rico for the 5th time, I had enough. If you can't beat him, join him. Grapple combat has the same features as neutral, attack, block, and counter. The person on top has a massive damage advantage, but if the person on the bottom counters at the right moment, they will Uno reverse them and take position. This leads to matches feeling pretty intense, as any poor decisions can get you instantly KO'd. Outside of this triangle of mechanics, we have submissions. Submissions feel totally separate from the rest of combat though, as again, it seems totally arbitrary as to whether they will fail or succeed. Sometimes I would try multiple times with no success, and other times would instantly be able to end the match. In my second match with Rico, I was put against Pete Williams, and it was a totally different experience. It's pretty cool that depending on which character you fight and their chosen discipline, you get a fairly realistic difference in the matchup. Pete is a submission fighter, so he uses very flighty hit-and-run tactics in the neutral, as his punches and kicks are extremely weak. But if he gets you on the floor, he can decimate you in just a couple of seconds. Despite switching to Rico, I was still getting destroyed. The combos in this game put up a real fight, and I was still very much learning the ropes. We were 30 minutes in, and honestly, we were having a blast. The fights felt intense, I was hyping up chat, and they were cheering me on. I didn't expect much coming to this game, but the stream experience was chef's kiss. Mwah! Now that I was familiar with the controls, matches could play out extremely quickly. It was a battle for top position through blocking and countering, and I would often go for a submission as early as possible. When submissions didn't succeed though, fights could go multiple rounds with a constant back and forth tussle for top position. Pedro took me a couple of attempts, but the second time around, I landed an early grapple and just wailed on him with heavy punches. This meant I had beaten 4 opponents with Rico, and it was time to fight for the silver belt. I was up against Josh Barnett, who was the youngest ever heavyweight champion in the real-life UFC. Unlike most other combatants in this game that adhere to one discipline, Josh uses mixed martial arts like pretty much every modern UFC fighter does. He has very quick combos and went in straight away with a flurry of blows, but I managed to land a counter into a grapple. Once I gained top position, I worked around his blocks and counters to rack up huge damage with my punches. Once his HP was nearly out, I landed a successful armbar, and with that, I landed the dub. Beating Champion mode yields the silver belt and unlocks Legend mode, which will be our next and final challenge to beat this game. Whenever you win a tournament, you unlock extra components for custom characters, and there are even hidden fighters to unlock. Funnily enough, you can even unlock Dana White, the president and CEO of the UFC. They gave him a very generous physique buff, and he is the most OP character in the game. Now it was on to Legend mode with Rico, to nab that golden belt and unlock the credits. Legend mode is no joke. It is 7 matches up from the 5 of champion mode, and if you lose any of them, you will need to start all the way again from the beginning. In a game where a rogue armbar can instantly beat you, that's a raw deal. I've already explained the mechanics, win condition, and given examples of how matches play out, so for Legend mode, we'll mostly be giving you the highlights. I got off to a really strong start. I grappled Pedro almost immediately and managed to knock him out through a barrage of punches. Match 2 is against Baz Rutten, and he is terrifying to fight standing. His punches do insane damage. Fortunately, I landed a cheeky counter and instantly converted to an armbar. This was a really nice win to pick up, as Baz is one of the scarier opponents. Match 3, I opened with an almost instant counter and immediately took full mount top position. I then converted that to a guard top and won in no time. It felt really cool that in under an hour, I'd gone from not knowing how to play and getting my ass kicked to feeling confident and crushing opponents. One thing I haven't shown in this video is that from a grapple, it is possible to back mount your opponent. I was never able to pull this off, and it was also never done to me, but if anybody succeeds in a back mount, apparently their attacks become unblockable, and submissions are also very likely to succeed. There's a tournament mode in this game that supports up to 8 people, and I imagine if you were all in the same room and had mastered the mechanics, it would be a pretty amazing time. Match 4 put me against my old nemesis, Pete, and once again, he just dances around constantly, possibly the most irritating opponent to fight. This was the first comm to take me all the way to round 3, and with losing my entire run on the line, I was sweating. This one came down to the absolute wire, and multiple times I was one punch or counter away from losing, but I managed to finally get around his blocking, and a heavy punch landed us win number 4. I started to think I was just going to win Legend mode on my very first try, but then the unexpected happened. No! Oh no! The only one powerful enough to beat me is myself. I even know this could happen. Just when it was looking so promising, I got Spider-Man. I know it's confusing that they are only distinguished by shorts color. I was in the gray shorts and the comm in the blue. Yes. Oh. Yes. No. Oh no! I'm getting bad timing. Let's take me apart. I'm gonna lose. Oh no! So, with great shame, I lost to Shadow Link and would need to start over from the first match. Sadly, I'd kind of peaked with the first attempt, and for the next 40 minutes proceeded to get demolished. Needing to win 7 matches with no defeats was incredibly frustrating, when I could be 4 or 5 matches deep and have the comm instantly break my arm or leg, and that would be that. I still think this is a solid and fun fighting game, and I have no doubt that if I played this for longer, the combat would go much deeper than my surface level understanding. But it feels pretty grisly that some characters have the ability to just counter from standing into an instant win. Jesus, what are you supposed to do? After many losses, I was contemplating changing weight class, but I decided to give my boy Rico one more chance at the gold, and I sent it. This time, my very first match was against myself, and I knew that if I could just win this one, my chances at the gold belt would go up massively. We both went incredibly aggressive in this one. I went for lots of little chump hits, and the comm went for one huge swing. I got so ridiculously close to losing here that I'm honestly unsure how it wasn't considered a loss, but I cheesed him for time and took him to round 2. In round 2, I went for an early tackle, played around his counters, and managed to lock in the all-important mirror match win. Match 2 is against Tsuyoshi Kasaka, and he is a submission fighter. He was the one in that clip earlier that can submit you from standing, and that makes him really spooky for Legend mode. I started out cautiously and was initially aiming to get a technical win. He tried to break my arm there and I stopped him. Now I've got position. This may have been the most clutch play of the game. That would have been the end of the run if I hadn't reacted in time. With 2 wins locked in and 2 of the scariest opponents down, I was starting to feel a bit more confident. Match 3 was against Dancing Queen Pete Williams. As usual, he turtled and ran away. We had a pretty intense grappling session, and he tried to break my arm. Fortunately, I reacted in time and took him to round 2. Round 2 was more flighty combat, and I tried to sneak in a cheeky leg break, but for another time, Pete took me to round 3. At this point, I had way more health and stamina than he did, and I just went for maximum aggression. I played around his counters and blocks, and took him out with kicks. Match 4 was another scary fighter, Mark Coleman. I think he has the strongest standing attacks in the game. Like, I mean, look at that. My hits do like nothing. Guy's nearly killed me already. This is crazy. With only a couple of hits, he took me down to 1 HP. This guy is a force of nature. I decided at this point that my only out was to play as safely as possible and try and run out the clock. I kept my distance, blocked his punches, and I was able to end the round safely. With my HP refreshed, I felt comfortable being more aggressive, and I decided I needed to take him out this round. I landed a really nice counter and grappled him down. A few heavy punches, and I had nearly taken the round. He managed to counter me and went for a leg break, but I reacted in time. It was down to the wire, but I carefully got a punch in and closed out win number 4. This game is way too intense, dude. If I could win match 5 against Pedro, then that would officially be PB. He had consistently been one of the easiest characters to beat so far, so I went in aggressive. Round 1 was pretty uneventful, with neither side dealing much damage. That meant we went to round 2 with full HP. In round 2, he managed to land a counter on me and get top position, but I kept my cool and Uno reversed him. I almost took him out there, but he was saved by the bell and we went to round 3. He went for an early tackle and we countered each other back and forth. After breaking his grapple multiple times, I went absolutely apeshit on him from standing and I finally beat match 5 for the first time. 2 more to go. Match 6 was the return of champion Josh Barnett, and this was only my second time fighting him. We both got a few punches in, and he tackled me to the floor. With a well-placed counter, I gained top position, and from here just went to town with heavy punches. I weaved around his counters and blocks, and then... Just gotta get the timing. Yes! Give me one more. Yes! One more, dude! Come on! Please, 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 please. Oh, I want this to be over, please. And with all that out of the way, it was on to the 7th and final match. The opponent, though, came as a surprise. Wait, we're fighting the referee. What? That's right. To win and get the gold bell and beat this game, we will have to defeat the referee, Big John McCarthy. What a twist! At this point, I was bricking myself. Losing would mean needing to go all the way back to match 1, and this guy was the size of a small plane. His doppelganger commenced the match, and this is what happened. Please, 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 please. Try to take me down. Come on, baby. Come on, you got this. Jesus Christ. This guy needs to chill. Yes! Yes! Dude! Oh my god, I'm so happy. Oh my god. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, dude. You have no idea how happy I was to be done here. This game was fun, but the idea of starting legend mode all over again was mortifying. With that 7th and final match won, we were awarded the gold bell and had officially beaten this game. We got some heavy rock music and the credits rolled. With the gold bell in hand, I was finally the ultimate fighting champion. It took me a speedy 1 hour and 51 minutes to beat this one, just under my 2-hour estimate. I gave this game a 6 for difficulty. The comms fight hard and will never just give you a win, but a few lucky submissions can have you blasting through rounds. Enjoyability was a solid 7 out of 10. I'm not sure if I would rate it that highly if I'd played it on my own. This one was carried by streaming, and having the hype of chat cheering me on when the chips were down. If you made it to the end, then please enjoy a sneak peek at what I'll be playing next time. Alright, game number 7 for the GameCube challenge. Charinko Hero. What the hell is that? Thank you very much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing as they help the channel grow, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye-bye.